Hello, this is the latest of my continuous improvement tips of the day. If you haven't noticed, there's been quite a bit of a gap since the last one. I'm trying to get this to more of a regular production. And unfortunately, as I'm kind of ramping up at a new location, I did recently move to the Chicagoland area. And it's just taking a little longer than I thought. I think I start to get things laid out, organized, and then something happens and I get a little bit delayed. So slowly but surely, I'm getting back on top of things. I'm starting to roll out some new courses as well as trying to get this as a regular feature on my YouTube channel. So, and then on top of that, last week I've had kind of a cold. You might hear the remnants of it now. And instead of sounding like Kermit, I just decided to delay it a little bit. So anyway, here we are on this latest video now. And this one is when it's a very near and dear to my heart. I bring this up a lot when I'm working with teams. And the whole gist of it is that everything that you do in your work is a process. And some of it's a very structured process, like production work. And some of it is more of a flexible, unusual, random seeming type of activities. But everything has a process, even if it's not well defined or if it's not set in stone or in writing. And the corollary to that is that every process can be improved. So if you start to believe that everything that you do, the way you drive to work is a process, the way you get ready for work in the morning is a process, the way you prepare your food is a process. If you're in marketing, everything you do there is a process. Now, some of these kind of the softer skill type of graphics design, things like that, the process may be a little bit more flexible and it may be harder to quantify, but you can still think about all the preparatory steps are processes. So you can take all the work to get ready for it, or to organize your color palette, or to select what the customers are looking at in terms of like kind of getting the parameters for your graphics that you're developing. All those things are things that could be really structured with a process. So I want you to kind of keep that in mind anytime you go and try and make an improvement. Now, it really takes a lot to reframe your mindset or change how you think about things, because a lot of times we just don't think about things like sending emails as a process. We think of it as a task, but a task still has a process associated with it. About, you have to open your program, you have to decide what to write, and as you start thinking, maybe you get I have a Stream Deck on here on my desk, and then you can program a button in whatever you want to put, and you can program a whole bunch of little blurbs in there, and maybe that's the process you use and speed things along. All these processes have things that you can do to make them better. And I want to make it really clear that when I'm talking about this, I'm talking about beyond just the shop floor. I'm talking about everything that you do in an organization can be turned into a process. And the best way to really believe this is to start writing things down. So you start taking your process, if you start documenting it, you start putting things on paper, it becomes something that you can now look at, and you can start seeing the problems with it, the obstacles with it, the things that can be improved. And as you kind of make that leap, you can start turning into a habit. And that's really where continuous improvement thrives, is when you create habits in how you operate on a daily basis. You don't just take things, every day is not just kind of random. You start creating habits of how you approach things, how you do things. And I want you to start small when you do this. You don't need to just go and start breaking out a big Kaizen event and bringing a team in to make every little improvement. Just make a quick improvement in your work area and start documenting the processes that you do. Along that lines, once you start writing these processes down, you start following them, you start thinking, is this the best way to do that step? Could I do something better? Why am I doing it this way? Did I plan on doing this? Is just because this is the tool I have available? Start making questions. And the better you get at asking those questions, the more you'll ask them for other things too. So once you make that a standard thing that you're going to do, you're going to question how you do your work, it becomes a lot easier to do this next step, to notice the patterns that pop up. So you'll start finding that people are creatures of habit. We often find that we take the same shortcuts, we do the same things the same way. Sometimes it's great habits and sometimes it's bad habits. So if you start looking for the patterns in how you do your work, you'll often find some of the things that you can make improvements on can be transferred in other locations too. And the same things happen a lot. One of the biggest ones that I always used to have problems with was interruptions. I started seeing the pattern of my processes were always derailed because of interruptions, and I'd have to kind of get restarted again. So I started trying to manage the interruptions a lot better, turning your phone off at certain periods of the day, turning your emails off, things like that. And what you'll find is once you start getting to this mindset that you're working on processes and that you're improving these processes, you'll find that you start making improvements, but now that improvements that you've made release a little bit of time, and that time that's now available lets you make more improvements. So you start getting this accelerating pace of improvement once you start getting into this mindset. So, hang on, because if you start doing this, you're going to find your work's going to get a lot easier and a lot better. So, well, that's my tip of the day. Hopefully that's worthwhile. I love it if you would subscribe, like the video down below. All this stuff really helps me out a lot more than you probably think. It gets me noticed, and I really appreciate it. So thanks a lot. Have a good day.